We are planning this year in 2025 to build something we call the virtual collaborator.
Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei talking AI at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. What he's building and how he's pushing past doubt in AI innovation.
There have been maybe 5 or 6 times in those 10 years where we thought that we were hitting a wall, where we thought that something didn't work. And, within a few months, something slightly different was invented.
So how will we humans fit into that something new?
At some point, we're going to get to AI systems that are better than almost all humans at almost all tasks. The term I've used for it in an essay I recently wrote is a country of geniuses in a data center.
The progress of Amodei's own large language model, Claude, and keeping an eye on AI progress in China.
I've been an advocate of preventing more of these chips from being shipped to China. They may be able to get to the 50,000 mark, but I want to make sure we can prevent them from getting to the million mark.
For him, dominance is not just a matter of pride, it's a matter of security.
If the United States can't lead in this technology, we're going to be in a very bad place geopolitically.
I'm CNBC producer Cameron Costa. Squawk Pod reports from Davos. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei begins right now. As we wind down coverage from the snowy Swiss village of Davos, we're going to zero in on one of the main topics at this year's World Economic Forum, artificial intelligence. More specifically, whether this new technology has hit a wall, meaning have our dreams of what AI can do hit a ceiling of tech resources and capacity? We heard from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella on that very issue.
I don't think there's a wall. Things do get harder with scale. And interestingly enough, pre-training scale with, as the scale goes up, gets harder. But then what Sam and team have shown, even with O1 and now O3, is this inference time compute and the ability to really have inference scaling compound in some sense the effects of scaling laws. So what used to be a 6-month doubling, maybe a 3-month doubling. So I would say scaling laws are very much alive. And the question now is, in fact, if anything, how do you take advantage of all this capability building to deploy real AI systems?
Larry Fink, head of the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, well, he was talking about AI too, but he was more concerned with the geopolitics of it all and who scales that wall first.
You had the Biden administration the last week put restrictions on where we could give our advanced technologies to. And it is my opinion, the country that we deny our advanced technologies, the next phone call is to China.
Of course, if you haven't heard those conversations, you've got to scroll up in your podcast feed. 2 bite-sized, big-brained episodes await you. In this episode, though, we're talking to the CEO of Anthropic, the company behind large language model Claude. It's like ChatGPT or Gemini, except they're each good at different things. And Google has invested in Anthropic, and so has Amazon, to the tune of about $8 billion in total on Amazon's part. CNBC Squawk Box anchor Andrew Ross Sorkin sat down with Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei in Davos this week. Here's that conversation.
Great to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
And you're a first-timer here in Davos.
My first time here, yes.
What is it, before we even get into it, what do you think of all this craziness?
It's pretty crazy.
It's about as crazy as you think. Let's talk AI, because that is, there's Trump and there's AI. It seems like those are the 2 topics here in Davos. And I would start with this. The big question in AI land is, are we hitting a wall? Right? I mean, I still think that topic is up for debate. We've heard Sam Altman say there is no wall. We've heard from Google saying we might be getting closer to one. You've sort of hinted around the edges that we might be hitting something, but I don't know.
So I've been in this field for 10 years. I've worked at all the major companies, including Google, including OpenAI. Me and some of my collaborators were the first ones to document what are called scaling laws, which is the observation that as you pour more compute into AI systems, they get generally better and better. And throughout that 10 years, there have been maybe 5 or 6 times in those 10 years where we thought that we were hitting a wall, where we thought that something didn't work. And, within a few months, something slightly different was invented. Either we didn't actually hit a block or something slightly different was invented that let us get around it. The scaling of AI, it feels like this river that, every once in a while it runs into a stone, but it'll always finds a way to go around.
It's hitting a stone to you right now?
It absolutely does not. In fact, right now I'm more confident than I have ever been at any previous time that we are very close to powerful capabilities. Throughout the 10 years that I've been working in this field, I've always said, I don't know for sure. This is the direction it seems like it's going in. We could be getting to very powerful or human level systems. I still think there's uncertainty. I think it's important to be humble. But over the last 6 months, I would say that uncertainty for me has decreased a great deal.
And gets to where? Gets to AGI or gets to something else? And that's artificial general intelligence.
Yeah, AGI has never been a well-defined term for me. I've always thought of it as a marketing term. But the way I think about it is at some point we're going to get to AI systems that are better than almost all humans at almost all tasks. The term I've used for it in an essay I recently wrote is a country of geniuses in a data center. It's a sort of evocative phrase for all the power and all the positive things and all of the potential negative things. That's the thing that I think we are quite likely to get in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't know exactly when, but the things that I've seen inside Anthropic and out of it over the last few months lead me to believe that we are on the trajectory.
One of the things that you've done that I think is remarkable is you have effectively taught, or maybe it's taught itself, effectively how to use a computer. Meaning rather than have APIs and have to go directly into things, that effectively it can go and use a mouse and find the things that it needs to go off and do. How game-changing is that?
Yeah, so the way I think of computer use, which is what we call that capability, is I think of it as the first step towards a broader vision. So our picture of the broader vision is we are planning this year in 2025 to build something that we call the virtual collaborator. And the idea is that would be an agent that operates on your computer, on a computer, might operate at work. And you can give it tasks. You can say, write this feature for this app. And, it'll write some code, it'll compile the code, it'll check the code, it'll talk to its coworkers on Slack or on Google Docs or on some other platform. It'll check in with you to see how to see how the task is progressing. So over the next year, we're going to be gradually putting out the pieces of this vision. And along with that, making sure it's safe and controllable and all of those things. And I think of computer use as the first piece of that vision. We initially released it a few months ago. It was an early prototype. It was good for its time, but we are quickly going to be iterating on that, but also on other pieces of the grand virtual collaborator.
Let me ask you a question about processing power. And the example I use is actually what Elon has done with XAI. It is remarkable to me that XAI, I don't want to say has caught up to what you're doing or what OpenAI is doing, but he's gotten pretty close pretty quickly. And it raises a question about whether these large language models ultimately get commoditized, that there's a special sauce that you have, and Sam Altman's got, everyone's got their own special sauce, but that it is, if you have enough NVIDIA chips, you too can build a large language model.
Yes. So first of all, I think not a lot of people are going to have enough chips. So I believe Elon has built, 100,000 chips. We're using Amazon's Trainium chips and Google's TPU chips. But this year we plan to have, I think it was announced at Amazon's conference, we plan to have several 100,000 of these chips ready by a few months from now. So I think that will already limit it to a relatively small number of players. Within that, I think there are a lot of sources of differentiation. Every model is different. So one of the things we hear about Claude is that people really like its character. People like interacting with Claude. People ask Claude for relationship advice, for help dealing with their problems, much more so than the other models.
Yes. One of the things, I can attest to that, by the way. I've played with it, and it is a much more sort of personalized and friendly service for some reason. One
of the things that struck me most about this was there was a blog post from Stanford Medical School about a week ago, and they looked into, I believe it was radiologists that they studied, who they showed the radiological images to the models, and they said, what do you, can this help with diagnosis? So there were two separate kind of axes on which they measured them. How accurate is the diagnosis? and many of the models had accurate diagnoses. But second, how likely was the radiologist to actually follow the model's recommendation?
Right.
And in that area, Claude won head and shoulders above the others because something about the way Claude was interacting with the radiologists made the radiologists more willing to listen to Claude.
Two final quick questions for you. One is actually a regulatory question. You have this very close partnership with Amazon. And there's a view that over the last 4 years in a lean econ world, that if one of these big guys wanted to buy you or wanted to buy OpenAI or whatever, they couldn't do it. And so everyone's done these partnerships. Do you imagine over the next 4 years, given the regulatory climate and what Trump is promising, that you will ultimately not just be a partner of, but be part of a company like Amazon?
So our mission is set up in a way that I think now and certainly for any future that I can foresee, it is best achieved by Anthropic being independent, right? We have, as you mentioned, partnerships with these cloud partners. We work with AWS. We work with
Google as well.
We work with GCP. But every time we make a partnership with these companies, we make sure that the terms of the contract that we sign respect a lot of our safety and security commitments, right? Our measurements for national security risk, cybersecurity of the models. And so we value our independence highly. That's why we're partnering with more than one cloud partner. Our view is that our mission is best achieved by being independent. It has nothing to do with what antitrust does or doesn't allow.
Okay, final question, and it actually relates to China. AI in China versus AI in the United States. One of the things that's interesting is the folks in China don't have access or are not supposed to have access to the same kind of NVIDIA chips and some of the other chips at that. But I am told, because I was actually with some AI folks in China last night, they think that their models are like 97% of what they are in the US, and they're doing it with chips that they think are 10 years behind the chips you're using. What do you make of that?
So
is that true?
They actually have managed to procure a significant number of GPUs before the export controls went into place. So, for example, DeepSeek, one of the companies within China, it's been reported at least that they have a cluster of 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs, which is half of what Elon had. So they may portray themselves as scrappy and operating on hardware that's behind, but actually they've managed to either smuggle or get before the export controls a large number of these chips, which is one reason I've been an advocate of preventing more of these chips from being shipped to China. They may be able to get to the 50,000 mark, but I want to make sure we can prevent them from getting to the million mark, because I think if the United States can't lead in this technology, we're going to be in a very bad place geopolitically.
Dario, I want to thank you for coming in. It's nice to see you here in Davos. Hopefully we get an opportunity to do it again very soon, back stateside.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
It's great to see you.
Thank you for listening to this special Squawk Pod Reports from Davos. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. You can always find the highlights of that 3-hour TV show if you follow Squawk Pod wherever you're listening now. Have a great day.